Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Show on a very special debate night. Yes, it is debate night, a little bit past 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And I want to chat about this debate because a lot of people are saying it's not important. It's the vice presidential debate. Why do I care about this? Larry, you are just trying to sucker us into watching you for 4 hours. Well, yes, but not only that, I will also give you some cool commentary the entire way through. So yes, you'll get cool commentary the entire way through if you're able to stay. Now, some of you aren't going to be able to stay the full. I get it. Some of you are going to jump on, jump off. No worries. I still love you all as long as you pop on for a little bit and get a little something here. We're good. We're good. No worries whatsoever. Now, here, the issue. The piece that I am going to talk about is why does this matter? All right. Generally speaking, this is true. Vice presidential elections do not matter much at all. That's true. Generally speaking, that's true. They rarely matter. Okay. Why is this one special? Two reasons why I think this is special. Number one, this may be the last debate of the season. That's number one. If it's the last debate of the season, it will matter because of that, right? The last debate of the season. This is what's going to last. This will travel for the next couple of weeks. This might make the media, all those things. And if it goes bad for Vance, and I don't think it will, but you never know. I never thought Biden would collapse so badly. I mean, that was a disaster. Say if it does, Trump may change his mind on his own debate. It's possible. He might see this and go, you know what? I might want to do another one. It could happen. So that's one thing. But the second thing, if it goes if it affects half a percentage point, that's all it does, right? One of them does so well, right? Walz does so well, or Vance does so well, that affects even half a percentage point in this election. That could be enough. This is going to be a tight election. It's going to be a tight election. This 0.5% could do it in this case. Usually it's not that tight. So who cares about it, right? Yeah. So that's the case. But Pete brings up immediately a good point. Is the October surprise World War III? But there's my next piece, Pete. You're joking, but you're not. There will probably be some form of October surprise. This might affect that, right? That's the issue. This might affect that. Joe, starting trash already. Everyone check if Vance-Walz are wearing earrings. Okay. That might actually come up. And if you know what I'm talking about, I will cover that in a moment. Let me cover what I think is going to be happening here. Sarah, thank you for watching. I appreciate being a member. I appreciate that. Twice in one day. Yes, I know. I did my 1 o'clock show for those of you who want to call in and say hi. But remember, my Tuesday 1 o'clock show is a New York-centric show. It's really about New York. It's a radio show out of Rochester, New York. It's really about New York. This one is always, well, almost always, more generic, more worldly, that type of stuff. So, yes, thank you for joining. I appreciate it completely. Yes. All right. So, let me cover what I think we're going to see. Believe it or not, I think Trump is going to loom large in this debate. Yes, I think he will. People are going to talk about that. The biggest distinction between the two, right, between the two people here is Vance. They're going to try to make Vance seem, to the best of their ability, arrogant and fake. That will be the goal of the Walz team. If I'm prepping Walz, that's what I'm doing. His goal should be to try to make Vance look arrogant and fake. That's the goal. This is not an easy task for Walz. Walz is not that good at this. So I'm not saying the task is easy. But again, we saw with Harris, the team was very good. They prepped Harris very well. If that same team is prepping Walz, Vance better watch out. Because if I'm prepping Walz, I recognize that he's not that great of a debater. So I'm not going to try to make him a great debater. That's not what I would do, right? If it's me, I'm going to try to get him to have a couple 3, 4 great retorts that will hammer Vance as fake, right, and arrogant. That's what I want. I want to draw arrogance out of him and show him to be fake. Again, I'm not saying it's an easy task. It is not easy. Here's the big disadvantage that Walz has in this debate. The big disadvantage is Vance has been doing this for a very long time. How many debates, how many press hits has he had since he's been VP? 100 more? Whatever, a lot. How many is Walz? I don't know, 5, whatever, not much. So Vance has got a whole lot more experience. He's got and Vance has done this kind of thing before. Like he's been like on the TV shows as a pundit and stuff. This is not easy. Walz is climbing an uphill. But again, I'm only going back with the last debate. And the last debate, Trump's team was at best mediocre, and Harris's team was amazing. If Harris's team is as savvy, if Walz's team is as savvy as Harris's team, they know the same thing I know, that he's not that good, and they're going to prep him for like 2 or 3 counterpunches. The person who will win here, in my view, is who can counterpunch the best, right? If JD says, boom, good counterpunch. If Walz says, boom, Vance counterpunch. I think that's the person who's going to win, whoever makes the best counterpunches. That is my piece, I think, this time. It will not be the opening statements. It won't be the straight up answers. It'll be the counterpunches. If you can counterpunch well, I think you win this thing. If I'm on Walz, all I'm more about is counterpunch. 3, 4 hard counterpunches that land. 1, 2, 3, good enough. Because what the Walz team has already done well. If you've seen this, they've already done well. They've already talked about how, well, Walz isn't that good. He's a good old boy, blah, 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 lowering expectations. The same thing they did with Harris. And it worked. It lulled Trump into a sense of, I got this. Now, did Vance fall into that? I don't know. We'll find out. If Vance does not have a tight opening statement, a tight closing statement, he fell into it. That's how we'll know. If he does not have a tight opening and tight closing, he fell into, I got this. The same stuff Trump fell into. We'll see. My gut says he didn't. Because I think Vance in general is pretty bright. I think he's pretty smart in general. I think he would see what happened. He knows Trump lost that last debate, and he's like, I don't want to do that. So I don't think he'll do that. But we would find out the hard way, right? If we found out that he doesn't have a good opening and closing statement. Let me keep moving on. Next piece. There's going to be a likability issue here. A big likability issue here. They're going to try to get both of them to be likable. The goal, as I said, is to get Vance to feel like he is arrogant, and Vance will try to make Walz look something important. Also fake, but not fake, a liar. There's a difference, right? Walz will try to make Vance look fake. He's going to say things like, well, you used to say you hated Trump. You used to believe in all these things. Now all of a sudden you believe in this. Now you hate that. He will try to make Vance look like he's fake. Vance try to make Walz look like he's a liar. I'm almost sure he'll bring up that stolen valor piece, right? But I thought you said this. Are you for Medicare for all? Oh, you're not, right? I think he'll try to make him a liar. So that, I see the differences. It will be easy to make Walz look like a liar if Walz can't counterpunch. Hence my point on counterpunch, right? If he doesn't do it last time, well, what about the stolen valor? Well, what he did last time? Oh, over. Again, I know that. His team knows that. He should have a great counterpunch for that. And if he doesn't, shame on his team, right? That's an easy, the ambush is coming. On the opposite side, Walz is going to bring up the cats and the dog comments, right? He's going to bring up, the childless cat ladies. He's going to try to make him look anti-woman by, of course, bringing up abortion. Guaranteed. Walz is going to bring up abortion and try to make Vance look anti-woman. Hope he takes the bait like Trump did and becomes arrogant or angry. That's the hope if they can do that. He will also try to make Vance a bad guy with guilt by association, right? Oh, so you're on the Trump team, but you weren't. Oh, what about, you're going to bring up things like, they're going to bring up Mark Robinson, I'm sure, something like that. That guy, what do you think about him? What about this other guy? I used to hate Trump. That is going to come up, guaranteed. Trying to make Vance a bad guy, guilt by association. You will see that happen tonight too, for sure. They want Vance to come off as a jerk, as arrogant, and as fake. That is the goal of the Walz team. The goal of the Vance team is to make sure Walz looks like a liar, but something else. A liar and also weak, right? They want him to look weak. They want him to think that, oh, he's not real. He's just some weak guy. He's a simp, right? That's what they want him to look like. They want Vance like tough guy, right? Marine, tough guy, and then Waltz is weak and a liar, and that is the goal. If I'm with the Vance team, that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to make him look that way. I think Vance may attack the moderators and or the questions, the entire thing, because he's good at that. I know some of you who don't like Vance are like, no, he's not. Yes, he is. Just being forward, he's good at that. Waltz has a lot of advantage though too. A better team, I think, but something else. He can absorb it, right? He's that nice guy, and that's his whole point. He will say you are bad, orange team bad. He won't say orange man bad. It'd be orange team bad, and he'll link them all together. That's his counter punches. If he counter punches well, it will work very well. That is what I think they're going to try to do. The other question I'm sure people are asking is, do we think they'll bring up Tulsi or RFK Jr.? I think no. I said it last time, and I was right. I think no. I don't think they're bringing it up. The only way they might possibly do it, there's only one way they might do it, and that's Waltz brings it up as an attack on him as the anti-stick guy, right? The anti-stick guy, Waltz could bring that up as, see all the crazy people you connect yourself to, Vance? See what a faker you are? You used to not think that way. Now you got the crazy people on you, right? Maybe in that regard. That's probably the only way I see him bringing that up. That's my gut. Otherwise, I think not at all. The next thing I think they're going to walk on is they're going to try, the Waltz people try to make Waltz seem not like he's not a lefty at all. Now, he's not a communist. People say he's a communist. He's not a communist. But he is a lefty. He's clearly further left than Harris is. In fact, Waltz is probably further left than most of the Democratic establishment, right? He's further left than most of the establishment. So, and that's true. That's what he is. He said it. He's there. Absolutely. So what does that mean? You can almost guarantee that Vance is going to bring up kids and gender. That's going to be a thing. Kids, as sure as Waltz will bring up abortion and women, Vance will bring up kids and gender. And if Waltz does not have a clear counter punch for that, shame on his team. Just shame on them, because that's got to be a guarantee. You know that's coming out. The problem is Waltz ready for this? Because Vance can be intense. He can be intense. And if he's on his game and intense, you could see Waltz crack. And that's exactly what Vance wants. Again, the goal of Vance is to make Waltz seem like a liar and weak. If he hits him strong and Waltz cracks, he's won his debate. The opposite's true with Waltz. He wants everyone to see Vance as arrogant and, of course, fake. If that comes out, Waltz wins this thing. And I think that's how it's going to play either way. Because the problem is women in America in general already don't like Vance, right? And they think if you've seen the narrative on TV, he's anti-woman, he hates cat women or whatever, he hates all those women. That's the narrative. They've been spread everywhere, right? So that's already in their heads of most people. So if he comes across as arrogant, that's going to hurt tremendously, right? So he doesn't want to do that. The other thing I'm sure they're going to bring up, the last piece, which I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they'll bring up, and Waltz will have in his pocket, it'll be the Project 2025. But if he's savvy, he won't say it. He'll ask him about it and make Vance jump through hoops. That's what he has to do. Say it and say, so are you for this? Are you for that? Getting Vance to have to jump through hoops. Well, what I meant, I could, that goes to the fake, right? If he can do that. That's, again, if I'm prepping, that's definitely one of my things I'm bringing out, right? I'm going to pick one of the things from Project 25, blame Vance for it, even though he did. Doesn't matter. I'm going to blame him anyway. I'm just telling you what I would do, guys. I know you might go, Larry, that's trying to win a debate. I'm a consultant. That's what I'm doing. Just telling you. That's what I'm doing. That is coming out of Waltz's mouth if I'm his consultant. A specific thing that's just whatever. Whichever one I think is the worst, whatever that one is, probably anti-woman would be one I'd pick. I'd be like, boom, how about this? Make him say, not dodge, whatever, right? I'd be hitting that all night long. Now, here's the biggest thing I'm hitting if I'm Vance. That stolen valor piece, big deal. If he misses that, oh my God. The kids and gender thing, also a big deal. And I think you see counterstroke if they're both savvy. Who gets stuck on that? could be a problem. I would have drilled Walz 1,000 times on this. I mean, hours just saying it and being aggressive and in his face. I literally would have been aggressive and in his face so that he takes whatever Vance throws at him, because Vance is comical usually. The goal is to get Vance angry. I'm sorry, I yapped away. Before I go any further, I do want to go further. Guys, if you like what I'm saying, you think it's important, do me a favor. Click the button that is like. You know you can. You know you should. Do it, because you should. Also, if you're watching on Twitter or on Facebook, share this now. Share it out so people can see it. They know what's going on. It's awesome. If you have not subscribed to either my YouTube, either my Larry Sharpe YouTube or whatever, subscribe. If you want your chat to go to the front, awesome. You can always super chat me if you're on Larry Sharpe YouTube. If you want to become a member, always helps. Click that join button, $5 per month. I do more and more of this and less of other things. So yeah, I do want to deal with that issue. If I could, I need to make one quick change. And that was, believe it or not, you might ask, what did you just change, Larry? And what I changed was I put on a fan. Yes, because it's all the lights on me. It's getting hot. And now my camera's all messed up. Can I fix my camera? There we go. Magic powers that I have repaired the camera. That is amazing. Let me grab some of your comments if I could. You have a bunch of them. Dave asked if we're breaking up bourbon. And Krista says tequila. Whichever you like. I love them all. It's all good. Yes, I do appreciate it. All good. All righty. Grab some more of these here. Joe says, I'm identifying as a jumper in and jumper off. I know some of you will. I get it. 100%. I know some of you will. But this could be important. Absolutely. It could be important. All right. Dave says, we shouldn't really care. Both are equally worthless for different reasons. The job of vice president is worth a bucket of spit. I think Harris would tell you it's not worth that, Dave, because she may be president because she was vice president. I think not at all. I think there's a whole lot of vice presidents who really wish were happy that they were vice president. Lots of them, I would bet. I don't know. Johnson also, right? George H.W. Bush, lots of them. So not sure. But this is the most important thing. You should be watching debates to see how the system works. Because if any of you watching, listening, decide you're going to run one day, if any of you want to support a candidate who runs one day, you should know how this works. And that's why I do this, so you guys can see the inner works. Remember the last debate? I was right on almost everything. Why? Because this is what I would do. I would be telling them this. I would be doing it. They know what I know, right? People say, Larry, why aren't you working for them? Because I don't want to work for Democrat or Republican. If we actually got an independent in these debates, maybe I'd work for them and I'd be setting them up to whip these guys' asses. That's what I'd be doing right now, right? That's what I would be doing. But you're right. Do I care if either one of these guys actually wins the debate? Not really. I think you're right, Deb. I don't. But is it important for the election? It is. I think it is. This one may decide if there's another election, and this one could just do 0.5%, which might actually sway the election. So this could matter in this specific case. But generally speaking, it's not there. Also, I would say Joe Biden was vice president. I would think he would think this is not worth a bucket of spit because he became president too. So vice presidents do become president. That's like a thing. So I think the vice president job is great. And again, someone today was teasing me saying, Massey's Sharpe for president. If Thomas Massey happens to be watching and you want him for president, you need a vice president, you think that guy should be me, I'm in. I do not think it's worth a bucket of spit. I think it's worth a whole lot. So don't mean to go against what you're saying, Dave, but I'm not in there at all. I'm thinking it's very valuable. Andrew says, I didn't know we would go live tonight. All right, Base, thank you. I'm glad. Yes, we are. And I'll be doing the debate live. We'll be doing the debate live and talking about it while it's going on. So it should be pretty good. Yeah, I hope it is at least. Yes. All right. Let's see here. Doreen says, Vance is very steady and stately. This coming from a defected RFK Dem. Agreed. Look, you will hear me often say things about people who I wouldn't support or wouldn't vote, or people who I would support or would vote for. But I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I try to give people credit where credit is due. I try to. And there are things that Vance is good at. It's true. Whether you would vote for him or not, I'm not saying you should do either of them. All I'm saying is what Walz is good at is being that howdy y'all guy. He's good at that. That's his skill set. He can absorb a lot and bounce back. Vance is, you're right, he's steady and he can be very aggressive. Key though here, I think, is likability. Can Vance be likable? Not always. Can Walz be likable? all the time. Lots of people like Walz. And I know some of you don't, but that doesn't matter. Tens of millions of Americans do. And that's his skill set, right? You want to do what you're good at. You want to, I remember this is years ago, had a candidate I was prepping for debate. And what he was good at was quips and jokes. Guy did not want to learn policy, just didn't want to learn policy. So he basically just told him a bunch of quips and jokes because that's what he was good at. And he was good. Like, he didn't win the debate, but he didn't get his butt kicked. Why? Because he was doing quips and jokes. That's what he's good at. Now, that's not great for a candidate to be forward, you, Doreen. It's not. But you do want to focus on what the person's good at so they can become great at it and they can really show. And I do think that's true. So, yes. Anyway, yes. Dave says, is Rochester, New York still alive? Yes, but hurting. It is hurting. Rochester, I like Rochester because people don't know it's actually a city on the lake. Most people don't even know that, but that's true, right? There is a beautiful lakefront in Rochester, a lot of good history in Rochester, and a lot of good neighborhoods in Rochester, and a lot of horrible neighborhoods in Rochester where the city has completely failed the communities. Rochester has some of the worst schools in the entire country. The last time I checked, it's probably a year or two ago. In certain parts of Rochester, if you were a black male, the odds of you graduating from high school were less than 20%. That's how bad it was. So, yes, 100%. So, any case. All righty. Fryer says, the best counter punches, I agree. AKA, they need to come with 3 switches. Yes, but no, Fryer Steve, I think that's the key, right? I think the attack, unless the attack is so devastating, it's not going to land. It's the counter punch that will land, right? And the hope is the attack from either of them, the attack, hopefully they screw up the counterpunch. They're unable to counterpunch. And then when they attack, you counterpunch them. I think the counterpuncher actually does work. So yes. Sarah, how are you? Thank you for being a member. Did anyone catch Trump's speech? I'm scared of WW3 now. A proxy war with Iran. You need to stop giving Israel and Ukraine dollars. You know what? This is a great point, Sarah. Do you think that they will bring up that in this debate? Do you think they'll be that substantive in this debate? My gut says no. My gut says they won't be that. They might be very generic. Like Harris has said she will do blah, blah, blah. What do you think? Trump has said he'll do blah, blah, blah. What do you think? That's what I think will happen. I would be very happy if they did World War III and talked about proxy wars and stuff. That would be amazing. They didn't do it in the presidential debate. Well, they do it now. But you know what? I'm going to write it down. Let's see if you're right. Well, maybe you're not right. Do you think they'll do it? I don't know if they will. My gut says it won't be that substantive, but I hope it will. We'll see. Joel says if the next assassination on Trump, I'm not going to say that. I'm not touching that. All right. I'm not going to walk down that road because I don't want to get canceled. But Joe was asking if some negative thing would happen to the orange bad man, can Vance run for president? Yes, he can. What happens is the party will have to decide how to replace him if they can. If they can't, the assumption is Vance will take over. Yes, Vance will probably be put into that spot. That is my assumption. So yes, they'll just make up a rule because they just make up rules. But yes. So again, goes back to my idea, Dave, not a bucket of spit. Yes, not a bucket of spit. Yes. Sarah goes on to say, my dream come true, a debate about cats and dogs. Not too shabby, right? It's funny. I don't hate cats at all. I prefer dogs for one major reason. I'm allergic to cats. So I've had 4 dogs in my life. Never had a cat. I've had 4 dogs in my life. My daughters like cats, though. They do. They like dogs also, but they like cats. I don't really like cats that much. I'm not against them, just whatever. I don't really like them because I am allergic. So I prefer dogs. I've had 4 of them. So yes. All right. Let's see here. Let's see if I can go down here. Pinkerbar says he's good at snipping at the press, but it makes him look bad and weak when he does it. This, Pinkerbell, very good. You are correct, and that's my point. He is very good at snipping at the press. He is. The question is, will he look arrogant? Yes. Will he look like a jerk? Yeah, that's the issue. He's got to do it in a way to where he doesn't look like a jerk. Walz will try to make him look like a jerk in 5 seconds. Should. Let me change that, Pinkerbell. should do that. That's what, if I'm teaching him, that's what I would do 100%. So yeah, my thought is he could do that if he feels, to your point, desperate, or if he thinks it'll make him look cool or strong. He might do it. That's something he does do. Dave says Walz is governor of Minnesota. He's very progressive. Yes, Walz is further left. He's not like a communist. People say he's a communist. He's not really a communist, but he is absolutely further left than the mainstream Democratic Party. Not even close. Absolutely. Oh, Jericho. Jericho thinks they bring up to Project 25 again and again. I don't think that's true. All right. We're going to write that one down too, see if you're right, Jericho. I think they'll bring it once, maybe. That's about it. Like a hit here or there. I don't think it'll keep going. I don't think Project 2025 lands. I think they've already floated that balloon. It doesn't land. The anti-woman stuff, yes, that lands. Remember, the Democratic Party is becoming, if it isn't already, it kind of is already. It's the party of educated women, right? Educated women as a general, and this is how the pundits define educated is have a college degree. So just when I say educated, that's what I mean. They'd say, now again, doesn't matter. You could be college degree and be a knucklehead, but saying this is how they decide. Educated means you have a 4-year degree or more. That is how they define that. It's the party of educated women. So they do not like Vance compared to any other, group. So I think they'll go there versus one. But I'm gonna write down. Maybe you're right, Jericho. See if you're right. You think multiple? I think no. I think once, maybe that's about it. So we'll see. Riot says, I've only watched Vance a few times, but I think he'll crush Walz. Vance is a great speaker and debater. True. But there's a problem with this, right? See, you may be falling into a trap here. Maybe. And that is a lot of people think the way you do, which means if Vance just beats Walz, then, oh, okay. He's supposed to. And the Walz team was very good. They jumped on board with that. They're like, yeah. Walz is terrible. He's bad. Low expectations. So now if Walz just goes toe-to-toe, Walz killed him. Oh, my God, destroyed him. So you might be falling into something. I'm not saying you're wrong. Please, I do think Vance is has far more experience, done this far more times, and he is much more stately. Yes, everything you say. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying this may be something you're falling into. Michael says, Larry Sharpe equals pre-debate Howard Cosell. Michael, I think we're giving our age away with saying Howard Cosell. Half the people who watch this don't even know who Howard Cosell was. For those of you who don't know, Howard Cosell, obviously, for those who don't know, in the 70s and 80s, did he go in the 90s? I'm not sure if he was big in the 90s. He was big in the 60s, 70s, and 80s as a sports announcer. Yes, very big. So thank you. I know that was a compliment. I appreciate it. So yes. Before I see this, were you in the military? I was indeed. Hold on. USMC, brother. Yes, indeed. USMC right here. Got this when I was, can you guys see that? I don't know if you can see that. Got this when I was in the Marine Corps. USMC back in 1989. Yes, 1989. I got that in the Philippines. So yes, indeed. Joe says the bunker has a fan. Fancy. It's a fancy bunker. It is. You're right. You thought I was playing around, Joe? I'm not. So Jane says he's putting in his earrings. Busted it right here. Like, it's obvious. Look, obvious. Earrings are already in. Been in. 100%. Absolutely. So Becky says, Larry, that was a handsome picture of you. Handsome picture of me. Becky, which picture is that? Did I miss one? Let me know. Thank you, I think. I don't know which picture you're talking about. You might be being sarcastic and teasing me. Tell me what picture that was. Oh, the one when I go, this picture. Okay, hold on. That picture. Okay, yes. I was actually listening to somebody going, what are you talking about? At that point, that picture is when I was in Minnesota, believe it or not, hanging out in Walz's territory back in the day. I was doing a session on leadership. And someone was taking a picture of me while I was doing a session on leadership. I was training leaders, and I was doing a one-on-one coaching piece with a bunch of leaders. And I was looking down and talking to the guy. We were sitting in chairs. That's where that comes from. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I had more of a beard then. I've shaved a little bit since then. So yes. All right. All righty. Mad Nomad M says, sure hope this won't be a nail in a coffin for DT. I already don't care for JD or Walz. Mr. Peter Thiel, yeah, install. Yep. He seems more far right than Walz is far left. Mad Nomad, you make up very good points. Number one, I don't think this is a nail in the coffin for either, right? because I meet a lot of people. Last weekend, I was at the Rescue the Republic event and also at the Rage Against the War Machine event. And while I was there in DC, I met a lot of people who live in DC. And many of those people are like, oh my God, Harris is going to win, guarantee. All my friends voted for Harris. It's DC. Of course. Like, I get it. DC, I get it. So my issue is, if you're in the Harris world, you might think, oh, done deal, right? Harris is going to win because everyone I know is going to win, right? Everyone is going to vote for Harris, so she's going to win. If you're in more of a Trump world, you're like, of course, everyone around here loves Trump, so we're going to win. But today during the show, there was a guy, Craig, who called in, and he was saying how he lives in upstate New York, and he sees Harris signs everywhere. Upstate New York, not New York City, upstate New York. So yeah, I don't think it's easy. I do not think this is a done deal at all. That's just my view. I know some of you might think I'm crazy because you think Trump or Harris is going to win. I think this is still 50-50 right now. And I think this could decide it. But even if it does decide it, the next 4 weeks could just shift that 0.5 someplace else, right? And to other people's concerns, what if there's an October surprise? Could move it again. This is going to be a very close one. I really think so, unless something crazy happens. So yeah. Also, the next piece you brought up, you think that Vance is further right than Walz is left. And that means it's working. That means it's working. Walz, they're trying to make Walz look like a centrist, which again, strategically, the right move. That's what they should do. The problem is he's not. Walz is not a centrist. Dave even said it. He's a progressive. He's further left than the party is. There's no doubt he is. Clear he is. Right? Clear he is. They may bring up the fact that this could also, I'm glad you brought this up. Vance might bring up the fact that Walz is a fan of China and he may use it against him. And see, you're a communist because you like China. He does like China. I mean, I think he's been to China like a couple dozen times. Like Walz is a fan of China. He's visited many times. I'm not saying he's a communist, but it doesn't mean that Vance won't use that against him and be like, see that? You're a communist. You went to China. That kind of thing could easily happen. Right? So if they do it well, then Walz will seem like a centrist and Vance will seem like a far-right, crazy anti-woman guy. That's their goal, right? And you might go, Larry, but none of that's true. So what? I don't mean to be mean. I don't mean to be flippant. I'm just telling the truth. When it comes to messaging, and if you guys are supporting Donald Trump, you'll be angry when I say this, but I'm telling you the truth. The Harris team has been better. They have been better. How do I know this? Think of how this feels. It feels almost like Trump is the incumbent and Harris is the change maker. It's nuts, but that's how it feels to a lot of people. They're like, yeah, we need some change. Just get Harris in there. She's already in there. Like, she's already there. So the logic is like non-existent in many of these cases, but the messaging is good. It's done well. I will respect the game no matter what. It's done well. The Harris-Walz team is a better team. And I'll tell you what I think the reason is why. This is my gut. Because the team that Trump put together and has been put together was supposed to be an anti-Biden team. And he's not going to fire all those people. And they're still there. And they weren't ready for this. And they haven't recovered yet. Yes, that's what I think. That one I'm not sure, but that's my gut. Because the Walz-Harris team is a better team. The messaging is better. Debate prep is better. They're a better team. They're keeping her. I told you guys they'd keep her in the basement. You laughed at me when I said that. I said, if I'll try to keep her in the basement. She's been in the basement a lot. Walz too. Keep her in the basement. If you can win this, keeping them in the basement, do it. Do it. How is she going to win this thing? So, yes. I hope that was clear on what I was talking about. So, yes. All righty. Let's see here. Matt, how are you, sir? Thank you for being a member. Identify as Haitian. Can I get a house and car? Yeah, why not? It's a great idea. There we go. Dallas, looks Maxer. Comrade Kamala is probably the funniest nickname Trump came up with. He does good ones. He does good ones. He really does. That's one of his good things. Yes. Joe says, Larry knows a cheat code to debate bingo. Yeah, I'm trying to. We got to do debate bingo. Let's see. Let's see if we can. So, all righty. Instant defense. So, are you voting for Joe Stein? To be forward, I'm going to tell you, for some of you don't know, I assume that's for me. If it's for someone else, please answer in defense, but I'm happy to answer. Last Friday, the Supreme Court trashed any real chance of RFK Jr. getting on the ballot. I mean, there is a minuscule chance that it might happen, but I might as well win the lottery. So it's not going to happen. He's not going to be he's not going to be on the ballot. I was going to vote for him here in New York State because that was my only chance of getting 2% and getting an independent party in New York State. But now it's not going to be a ballot. So it's just going to be Trump and Harris. My vote now is wasted. My vote now means nothing. It was going to mean something. If RFK was on the ballot, it would have meant something. I could have voted for RFK Jr., got a party, an independent party in New York State, and made some impact. Now it doesn't matter. Harris is going to win New York State. If the state's 3-1 Democrat Republican, and Republican tells you otherwise, is either lying to you or ignorant. It's not going to happen. Harris is going to win New York State. So who do I vote for now? I don't know. Do I not show up? Do I write in Jill Stein? Do I write in Chase Oliver? Maybe. Do I write in RFK Jr.? Maybe. It doesn't matter. So this is not a cop-out because I told you what I was going to do. This just happened Friday. So now I don't know. I was thinking I was going to vote for RFK Jr. That was what I thought I was going to vote for. I thought he was going to have a chance to get me a party. That's what I thought. Well, I thought wrong. I don't know. Something like that. That's what I can tell you. So yes. Matt Doman goes on to say, if DT wins and the DNC takes him out and we're left with JD, that brings me feelings/nightmares of Handmaid's Tale. Wow. Damn. Okay. Handmaid's Tale. Gotta watch out then. Wow. But yeah, that's good that you say that because it shows that the narrative is working, right? Again, Vance, the narrative is that Vance is anti-woman. That fits the narrative perfectly. Friday says, please explain this stolen valor thing I've been following. It's a one-time thing that he said, plus when he left Waltz in 2 places that they've been bringing together to hammer him. Then to be forward, I don't know if it's true or not. I have not done detail. It doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if people believe it, right? So 2 parts. 1, Waltz was in the, if I remember right, was it the Army National Guard? National Guard, I forgot. I think it was Army National Guard for something like 26 years or something like that. Whatever, many years, 20 some odd years. And then when his unit was supposed to be deployed, he retired. And they said, oh, it's because he's a coward and he didn't want to go to combat. I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe. I don't know if it's true, right? Could have just been, I did my 26 years and I'm out and bad timing, right? I'm a Marine. I didn't go to combat. Wasn't because I didn't want to. I was in during the first Gulf War. I volunteered to go. They said, no, train reservists and send them. I followed my orders, right? And then I got out before the second Gulf War. So it could have been that. It's possible. But that's what they used against him. The second thing is, I think he misspoke, but he did not say that. That's the problem. What happened is he said he carried a weapon a military weapon in war. So saying that he was a combat veteran when he is not a combat veteran. And if you're a veteran, or if you are, Friar Steve, veterans who aren't combat veterans don't say they're combat veterans. I say I'm a first Gulf War era veteran, not a first Gulf War veteran. I'm not a veteran of that war. I'm a veteran of that era, so you know what time period I was in, right? I don't say I'm a combat veteran because I'm not a combat veteran. I'm a veteran. So we make a distinction. He said he was a combat veteran there. And people are like, what? And then when they asked him, this is my point earlier, he did not have a good answer. He's like, my record speaks. He did some dodge versus going, no, I misspoke. I was excited and pissed off and I said something stupid. That's what he should have said. If I ever say I'm a combat vet for whatever reason, I don't know why I would say it, but if I ever said it and someone said, why would I say that? I'd be like, I don't know. I was stupid. I should never said that. I would just say it. I would just be forward. I was probably talking trash, stupid, whatever. I don't know why I was excited. Again, I can't imagine myself saying it, but if I did, it will be because I was thinking something dumb and I would totally just yes, I was dumb. I didn't mean it. I would just say it. He did not do that. So that's the stolen valor thing. Again, if you're savvy, if your team is savvy, you are ready for that attack now. So what time's debate? 9. Yes. And yes, there will be a debate simulcast right here. You can just keep watching or come back in. You can do what Joe does. Come in and come out. All works. Yes. Joseph says, voting Sharpe Massey. I'm sorry, Massey Sharpe. Freudian slip. I'm not joking. That'd be great. Yes, absolutely. I don't think that Massey would have won a Sharpe Massey ticket, and I'm okay with that. No issues. I am completely okay with that. Love it. Brian says, break out the onions. And we know what the onions mean. Yeah. Sarah says, oh, is this true? 33% of presidents were once VP. Nice. Ooh, I like that. I like that. I didn't know it was true. Sarah, thank you. By the way, thank you for being a member. I appreciate it. Yes. Joel goes on to say, 1970s Rochester was the best city in New York and possibly in the country to live in. It was an amazing place. I agree. It has gone down tremendously. Absolutely true. The AC, how are you, sir? Thank you for being a member. Okay, back. Sorry, Luke and Jessica are making some good points on pondering politics. Do not go over and check that out. I think that he is wrong. Or just put them here so we know we have to watch. Keep watching me. Don't leave. Anyway, yes, but I make better points. Yeah, there we go. Peace Logic. Larry, I went to the Republic after party last Sunday. They seem significantly friendlier than the Dems. They seem more expecting no matter the party. Accepting. Oh, yeah. Well, this is a piece, right? If you look at, and this is a little bit different, but this is why I think that in this debate, there'll be no mention of the dream team, of the cool kid club, right? Of the Unity Party. I think there'll be no mention of it. They won't mention RFK Jr. or Tulsi unless Walz is attacking Vance. Then he might. You got these crazy people around you, otherwise he won't. There's kind of almost two sides now to the Trump campaign. It's like the Tulsi RFK side going this way, and then the Trump side going that way. It's almost like two sides. And in the Tulsi RFK side, it's basically a coalition of like everybody who's not a Democrat. So when you were at the after party, a lot of those people were there. So it's almost like you're all together if you're not a Democrat. So it's very open. It's very open to people and accepting. So I think that's why. Thank you for the $5, my friend. I appreciate the super chat. And guys, if you want to super chat, feel free. If you're on Larry Sharpe YouTube, feel free to do that. Click the button known as like if you have not already. If you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, please share this right now. Go just reshare it, tweet it, retweet it, repost it, share it, whatever. If you own any of the other spots you have not subscribed or followed, why not? I don't know why you hate me. And why do you hate Peace Logic? What's he done to you? What's he done to you? You hate him if you don't do this. He's a good guy. Been on the show before. Good guy. Anyway, super chat if you want to, and you can also become a member. I do try to grab the member spots if I can, faster if I can. Click that join button, $5 gets you membership. So pretty good if we can. So yes. Alrighty. Becky Lee says, if replacements needed RFK, again, people ask that question. I don't think that will be true. I don't think they'll bring him up. I don't. Remember, most Republicans do not see him as Republican. They see him as a angry or pissed off Democrat. So I don't think that will be true. So yeah. Becky goes on to say, Vance would be wise to work in the war spending and sports strike on import strike. You know, if he does, that's brilliant, right? But that would be substantive. I'm worried that it won't be. But you're right? That would be a great thing, Becky. If he's like, well, what about this? What about that? Hopefully he will. Because here's the problem. The problem is Walz and Harris don't have many policies. Now, again, if I'm Vance, I want Walz to look weak and like a liar. So I'm with you, Becky. I would have Vance say things like, what about this? What about that? What about this? What's your plan for this? What's her plan for that? Biden did this. Do you support him? Biden did that. Do you support him? That is how I'd be attacking Walz. Biden did this. Do you support him? Biden did that. Does Harris support him? Harris won't answer a question. Will you? Harris doesn't know how to answer this. Will you? That is how I would do it. And I'd go even further. I'd say, how can you support Harris when you don't know what she stands for? If I'm Vance, right? How can you support her? I can support Trump because I know blah, 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 whatever, and say whatever Trump did, right? Whatever you like. And Vance has to say that because if he doesn't, they're going to think he's fake. So you got to go to Walz and go, why do you support Harris? How can you? This. And see what he says. Yes, absolutely. So Jerica says, here from Rochester, still alive. Yep. I actually live south of there, and the city is a mess, and Barrow from isn't helping. 100%. Rochester's in trouble. It is. It's in trouble now. But there are still great parts. I mean, the northern parts of it are beautiful too. It's again, people don't realize it's a lakeside city. It is. So yeah, there's so much possibleness there. So yeah, all right. Okay. Let's see if I can grab some more of these if I can. All right. Brian says, I'm the opposite, allergic to dogs, but not cats. Oh, yeah. No. Fina, how are you? Larry, will you be live streaming the election tonight? I will be, yes, in about 15 minutes. I will be doing that 100%. Yes, indeed. And then will they talk about the hurricane rescue and recovery or the longshoreman strike? Now, here is, I think, a big piece that Vance should do. And then why, Liberty, you have hit the nail on the head here. The biggest piece would be if he were to say something like, and whatever the way he wants to phrase this, look, you're supporting the wars. We're throwing X millions of dollars into these wars for the past, some odd years. Yeah, we have Americans right now dying in southeastern United States. Where's the money for them? Where's the money for the Americans here suffering? What do you have to say about that? We are sending all this money overseas for all these wars you want to support, all this death. We have death here. What are you going to do? We got a strike coming. How are you going to fix that? That piece is what I think is important. If he brings it up, Walz better have an answer. If he doesn't, he's going to look weak. He's going to look weak. If he dodges, he's going to look weak. This would be, again, if I'm Walz, I have a bunch of spin and counterpunch. Spin and counterpunch. Spin and counterpunch. That's the piece. Yes. I really think that's a critical piece. So anyway, thank you. Fryer says, look into a Marine, World War III. Iran can't launch a ground invasion of Israel, and if Putin uses a nuke, China won the consequences. Is that for me? Because I'm the Marine? Maybe. I don't know. The idea of Iran in launching a ground invasion, I think, is slim. The idea of Iran funding one is not. That's the issue. And they could fund it using other proxy nations. They could fund it through China, fund it through Russia. They could fund it. So, and they could send units, and they could send. But you're right. I don't think they're gonna. I don't think Iran would try to march its army across Iraq or across Syria and invade Israel. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're right. If they made any attempt to do so, America would destroy it en route, right? But could they slowly bring people over and fund it and such? Yeah, I think that's possible. Could do that. That's possible. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying it could happen. So yes. Nate, how are you, my friend? Which one would have a more measured foreign policy if they found themselves CIC? Well, these two? It's a good question. If either one of them, it's not a bad question to ask yourself. I don't actually know. It's a good question because measured is an odd word, right? Measured is an odd word. What do you mean by that? Does that mean calm? Is that what that means? I don't know. It's a good question. I would guess the calmer person would be Walz. I would guess he'd be calmer. Doesn't mean better, but I think he'd be calmer. So yes. Jericho says, okay, we're putting a bet on that one, Larry. I'll send you a coffee card if I'm wrong. All right, look, I got it right here. You said multiple 2025s. We'll see. Multiple 2025s. Yes. Brian goes on to say, Iran has no need of a ground launch invasion. I agree. They could just fund something. 100%. They could fund something. Yes. Mike Voss in the house. How are you, sir? No real substance argument against Vance. Putting it superficial. Walz says issue, pro-BLM, pro-autonomous zone, stolen valor. Walz will match those expectations. 2 points to that. One, of course, there's substance against Vance. Of course there is. There's substance against everybody. Of course you can find something. The question is, does Walz know enough about it to speak about it? And is Vance prepared to respond? Right? Of course there's something. Of course there is. But that's not the goal. The goal is going to be to make Vance, to basically say, Vance, you said X. Do you still mean it? Vance, you said Y. Why'd you change? Vance, how can you support Trump? He's around all these bad people. You're a bad person. That's what he'll try to do, that kind of thing, which you might think is superficial, but not to the voter. The second piece is, you're right also. Walz is farther left than the average Democrat, no question. Stolen valor is a big idea. Does he have the counterpunch for it when Vance brings it up? We'll find out the hard way. My gut says yes. Again, I said it earlier. Harris has a good team. If Walz has that same team, they were good. They prepped her well. If they prep him well, he's got a shot. Walz will match low expectations. All he has to do is beat them by a little bit, and he wins this. That's the advantage he has. So the AC says they leaked that Walz is nervous. Yeah. So Walz's team did that. Yeah, I think that's true. Yes, 100%. So, all right. Fryer says, if Walz loses debate, will he admit defeat? No. Why would he? Of course not. No. Kim says, honey, I'm home. Sorry I'm late. I smashed the like button. Thank you. I forgive you. Smash the button that is like. You are absolutely, you are forgiven. Yes. Daniel says, I'm prepared to do a shot of whiskey every time Vance says yes, but the economy. It's not a bad retort, right? It's not a bad retort. It isn't, right? Because I think but the bad part is, my concern is Vance going to be able to turn the tide? The mainstream media has been pushing this to make it look like Walz is the newcomer and Trump is the incumbent, right? Harris is the newcomer and Trump is the incumbent. If Vance can spin that around tonight, I mean, that might be the nail in the coffin if he knew that. I can't see that, but yes. Piggerbo says leaked. Lower. Yeah, thank you. Exactly. There was no leak. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Adrian, thank you for being a member. If you like self-confident, more alpha type, you'll like Vance. Friendly Uncle Walt. Bingo. Yes, this will be a likable piece, right? Can you take Vance's strength and alpha, to your point, whatever you want to use that? Yes, and still be likable, and him not look like that he's anti-woman, right? Can you do that? Yes. Alexa says, I wasn't even a twinkle in my dad's eye in 1989. Yes, I know. I'm a bit older than some people. Yes, 100%. 100%. 100%. Yes. Cyber says, Sharpe, can you comment on some behavior recently of very prominent libertarians taking shots at Malaya, trying to blow the whistle on events this weekend and having a number? No, I don't give a shit what they think. I don't care. I don't pay attention. I don't care. I'm not mad at them. It's just, who cares? Prominent libertarians saying stuff. So what? Not going to change nothing this year. It does not matter. It's utterly irrelevant. I don't get involved in that shit ever. Do you ever see me get involved in that stuff? The Libertarian Party wants to fight culture war. They want a virtue signal all day long. Let them virtue signal. I don't care. I don't mean to be mean. Saiba, I'm not very mean. I'm just being, you asked the question, I'll give you an answer question. I don't care. It's just a bunch of virtue signaling, fighting culture war garbage that means nothing. They threw this year away when they had a great chance to make impact. They didn't want to because they're so busy fighting each other. Let them keep fighting. I don't give a shit. I'm already past that. Well, it's a throwaway year for most libertarians. We'll try to fix it next year, I guess. For most of them, not all of them. There's something. By the way, Fina, who was watching, she's amazing. Check out Fina. She's awesome. She's someone you should check out. But the presidential level, who cares? The national level, who cares? It doesn't mean anything. It's a throwaway year. I make some of you angry when I say it, but just saying the truth. I just don't see it. So anyway, alrighty. Let's see here. I'll grab some more of this if I can. Nate says, I see a lot of Harris signs in my neighborhood more than Trump. Yes, and by the way, Nate also lives upstate New York. And some of you are thinking, oh my God, yeah, New York's going to go Trump. No, Nate lives upstate New York. He sees more Harris. Yes, 100%. 100%. NNY says, Hudson Valley, I can see them being very pro-Harris, and then those signs up here that I've seen, not even TV, save the TBS Harris ad. Yeah, so it depends where you are, 100%. All righty, so if I grab some more of these. Pinkerbus says, first time in history, Democrats have been better at messaging. They are. I mean, right now, they are better at messaging. It's true. They just are. So let me grab Peace Lodge again. Thank you. Oh, member, thank you for my friend. I appreciate it. They talk about how Trump will deport illegal immigrants. Is it even possible on a large scale? They won't ask how. They won't. If they bring any of that up, it'll be the talk of the cats and the dogs, and they'll use Haitians, and they'll use race. If Walz brings this up, he will bring it up as, how can you support this racist or this xenophobe or whatever word. He'll use an isterophobe, right? Something like that, and attack and say, hey, how can you do this? How can you do this? That's how he'll use it. But he won't ask, how they're going to do. I don't think he will. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to put it down. I'm saying he won't do it. Yeah. I don't think he will. I don't think so. So that's my response to that one, if I can. All righty. Joseph says, I live in upstate New York, huge Harris majority. Guys, you think I'm teasing? I'm not. I know my state. I know my state. I'm not playing around. I know my state. This state's going to Harris. It's not going to Trump. It's just not. It's not going to Trump. Not going to happen. Now, will there be many Trump votes? Yes. The Republicans in New York State do like Trump. That's true, right? If you find Republicans in New York State, most of them do like Trump. So Trump will get lots of votes. That's true. He's not going to get like 90-10. That's not a thing. But he's not going to win. It's not possible. The people who would be voting for Trump, they're leaving this state 6 figures a year, 100, 200, all that. Brian said, thank you, Brian. You read my mind. New York's bleeding red, 100%. They're all going to Florida. They're going all over the place. They are leaving. Yes, they're leaving everywhere. Missy, in the house, how are you? I live in a red state. This state will go Trump. I'm voting RFK Jr. There we go. Yes, 100%. People are definitely, they're packing up and they're going. It's absolutely true. I know people don't like it, but it's true. I am going, it should be starting pretty soon, right? Yep. All right. Let me start to see who I can do with this. So I'm setting this up here. All righty. If I can find it, give me a couple seconds, guys, to pop this up and see if we're anywhere. All right. All right. So I am set up for when they start. They haven't started it yet, but when they do, I am set up for it to pop in. So that's good. Fina is here, by the way. You can find Fina. Guys, if you're going to check her out, please check out Fina Benowen. She's amazing. She's running in Florida. She's one of the good ones. I'm teasing, but she is. It's true. It's absolutely true. So please check her out. If you can support her in some way, please do that. Yes. So, all righty. Blue Black Boss, thank you for being a member. I don't know why Israel didn't do special operations like we did to get bin Laden to bring down Hamas. What exactly makes the situation different than our war on terror? It's a good question, one that I don't want to answer here, but I will say I think you do find us doing some of these special operations. That that beeper thing they did, that was something. So there are some of them. So yeah, they do some of them. Just not maybe that many of them. They do some of those types of things. I think they do. Yes. All righty. And then why Liberty says, I've seen quite a few posts on Facebook Marketplace recently, just giving almost every household item away and stating they're leaving the state all the time. There was a thing. There are people, this is not a joke. There are people who are going to Pennsylvania just to get a U-Haul because the U-Hauls are too expensive in New York because some people are grabbing U-Hauls. Yes, that's crazy. That is crazy. You go to Pennsylvania to get a U-Haul because it's so expensive to get U-Hauls in New York because everybody's getting U-Hauls. And then what Liberty says, bingo. Yes, absolutely true. Joseph says, all my R and C friends live in New York State. Yes, I know. I know I'm rubbing this out because everyone's sitting there, oh, that wasn't a good choice. Anyway, I know I'm rubbing this in because it's people keep saying it. And I keep saying, no, it's not going to happen. How do I know this? At least a third of the people who are working with me directly in 2018, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe there's a lot, 25%, 1 in 4, they left. They're not here anymore. People wonder why. Why is the Libertarian Party broken so badly, in New York State? A lot of them just left. They just packed up and left. It's tough to be literally in the state and be a libertarian in New York State when you're not there. They literally have left. That is an issue. So Proud Vet says Vance is a great political athlete. He's just bad at backing up Trump's insane talking points. Again, if I'm Waltz, that's what I'm bringing up. I am bringing it up all day, all night. I am bringing up that and saying, defend it, defend it, defend it. That's the issue. Yes. That's what I'd be bringing up all the time, 100%. So, all righty, and grab a couple more of this if I could. Missy says the right thing. She says you should be sure you're subscribed. YouTube has been randomly unsubbing people. Yes, happens all the time. Please do that. Yes, please do that. Yes. Prodvet says, Larry, what you're describing is what Trump should be running on a populist coalition with former Dems. It's terrifying how Trump isn't winning by 5 points. He's polling at 40% with Hispanics. Yes, he should be winning by a gazillion points in that regard. But again, a lot of people don't like him, period, number one. And what the Democrats have done well, and I know you Republicans or conservatives don't like when I say it, but it's true. They've been doing well at changing the narrative. They've been changing the narrative. That's the problem. They're acting like, Trump is now the incumbent, which clearly he isn't. But they've been acting like Trump's the incumbent. That's the issue. Yes. So, all right. Is the debate starting? I think it's starting. Yeah, it is. Oh, I better get you going here. Sorry, guys.
From Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret, thank you,
Jesus.
Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism
Watch
in
for
the
an opening
world,
statement
and it
here.
has drastically reduced the
Watch for an
time it
opening
would
statement.
take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages
History
back,
lesson, talking
fundamental,
points. Wasting
and
time.
ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met.
Guilt by association, Orange Man bad.
Of his secretaries
no
of
answer to the
defense
question.
And
this is an opening
his
statement.
national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together.
As I said,
understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Now, be smart.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit, because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family.
Opening statements.
My mother required food assistance.
They do it anyway.
Of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret,
yes,
and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Boo.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump.
As I told you,
we had
the first thing I said,
of nations.
This will all be about Trump.
That had boxed
first thing I said,
Iran's nuclear program in the inability to advance
and
it.
need to answer the
Donald
question.
Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Working class family like
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal.
I thought you weren't going to fact check.
He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible.
He does look cooler. It's true.
Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blamed Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now.
Walz has to counterpunch or he's in trouble.
It's got to counterpunch. October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot
Supporting
to get
Trump
to.
very well. I got to give him that.
Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene.
This is a mistake.
The storm could become one of the deadliest on record.
Walz should have jumped in and
More
counterpunched that. He's losing right now.
60 people are dead and hundreds more are missing.
Walz is losing.
Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of
climate change. Now, Vance could blow this one. Walz is a lefty.
Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change.
Okay.
Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of two grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child. And it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people. Our prayers go out to them. And we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible. And then, of course,
bring the war up. Be
afterwards,
smart.
to help
Bring
the
war up.
people in those communities rebuild.
Throw
I mean,
money
these
at the
communities that
wars.
I love, some of them I know very personally, in Appalachia, all across
Do
the
it.
Southeast, they need their government to do their job. And I commit
Yes, Craig,
that
the
when
premise
Donald
is
Trump
bad.
is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. And Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true. Just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science, let's just say that's true.
Yes, he dropped it.
If you
Vance,
believe
screwed
that,
up.
what would you want to do?
Should have made that war dollar connection.
You want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we are the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane. And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We're producing more natural gas.
These are better answers
than we ever
than the
have.
presidential candidates did.
We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is
They're actually answering
critical,
questions and
but
talking.
This is
Well,
not a
Walz
false
didn't ask the
choice.
first one, but still.
You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies.
Opposite of Orange Man bad.
Something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years.
There we go.
Natural
Nuclear.
gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
that.
this by the climate.
Your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil, but the folks know, and like I said, again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought
this is my point.
Flooding the next year.
Trying to be more moderate. It's not Green New Deal
Look,
people. Those are the crazy people. He's not that.
Cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that,
supposed to be
we're
radical,
thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that. And an all above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Not bad.
Thank you, Nora.
Come on, no
We're
hits.
Turn now to
no
immigration.
counterpunches.
The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work?
They did talk about it. I thought they wouldn't. I was wrong on that one.
Parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil.
You guys were right.
You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border
I was off
illegally.
on that one.
I think you start with deportations.
I was off on one last time too.
And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers.
Ooh,
a lot of people will go
off.
home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what? I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of the specific allegations,
that's fine.
including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the attorney general of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race
Good talking point
who
here.
prosecuted transnational gangs for
Says it all
human
the time.
trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this. And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle.
There's no counterpunch. Nobody's
Democrats and
winning. I
Republicans
mean,
worked on this piece of legislation.
right now, Vance is
The
kind of
Border
winning on
Patrol
points.
said, this is what
but
we
there's-
need in here. These are the
Someone's got
experts.
a
And
counterpunch.
the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him to, what would
Yeah.
Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do
Look, it
this through
says,
the executive
so letting in
branch.
fentanyl, got
So
it.
look, we have
Yeah,
the
they're letting the
options to do
kids
this.
in, but not the
Donald
fentanyl.
Trump had 4
That's
years.
not true, of
He had
course.
4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation
There's
plan,
the
at one
ISTFO.
point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your
he
time
made a
is
mistake
up.
again.
Senator, the question
he had
was,
a
will you
chance to
separate
trash
parents
him.
from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time
you're
is
right.
up. Governor,
You're right,
what
didn't.
about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this.
The fake.
That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Lankford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue.
Never
And the
brought it up, lunatic.
consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send
Never
state
brought it
law
up.
enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been. And it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico. You've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans.
Vance's team told him not to be aggressive, and he's not counterpunching when he should have counterpunched. He's being too soft on Walz.
Who have had their
and
lives
Walz is not being
destroyed by
aggressive
Kamala
on
Harris's open border.
Vance,
it is a
this is being
disgrace,
neutral.
Tim. And I actually think, I
Okay,
agree
here
with
we go.
you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is
Whoa.
up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame.
Dodge that a bit.
Look, this bill also gives the money necessary
Vance
to
knows what he's doing.
adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us, you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status.
I thought there was no fact checking.
Well, Margaret, but
I thought
Senator,
no, 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 no.
so much to
Keep
get
talking.
to.
No, you fact check.
We're going to turn now to the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And
Thank you. And you just fact checked.
I think it's important to say
I
what's
told you
actually
Vance
going
would
on.
attack them.
So there's
See?
an application called the
I called this
CBP
shit.
One app, where you can go
Told
on
you.
as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
Thank you, Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, then you
want to
shouldn't
have
say
it.
anything, should you, lady in pink? You should have kept your mouth shut.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
Well,
we have
then next
so
time,
much
shut
we
your
want to
mouth,
get
pink
to.
lady.
Thank you for explaining the legal process. Nora.
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan, so let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand.
Middle
So
class,
those of you
see
out
that?
there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by a third. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in.
Yes,
everyone
but it's working.
agrees,
You're right,
including businesses, it would be destabilizing it. It would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share.
You're going to have deficits.
Our
he
system
said,
works
well,
best.
Trump had deficits.
More people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say, look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle class and working class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that?
That was nice. Nice little wrap up there.
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that.
It's a great talking point. They got to hammer this more if they want to beat Trump.
The things we moved.
They got to hammer it
made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this.
It's not going to land.
Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years?
Nice.
The last year as president. That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
Have a counterpunch.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in.
Nice.
I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here, because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which is
now he's bunching
groceries and housing unaffordable for American
citizens. You better turn around. You're losing on points. You got to do some punching.
Sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on healthcare then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you, Margaret.
We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics.
You had to counterpunch there. You had to.
Personal qualifications.
He just dressed you down. You got to counterpunch that.
The last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions.
What are you doing, Walz? What are you doing?
We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989.
Oh, here comes China. I told you, China.
But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get us the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska.
I'm poorer than
town
him.
Of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher.
So we think you're a liar in
my
Chinese.
My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China.
My life.
35 years ago, to be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. My community knows. I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect.
Walz,
and I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done.
Okay, but did you go to China or not, man? Did you lie or not?
Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So
why did his team not prep him for this?
Has been from the beginning.
Team
to make
failure.
Sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right.
Failure.
I will say more than anything.
They were going to bring up China. I told you to bring up China.
I will get
caught up in the rhetoric,
and he's
not ready for it.
But being there, the impact it made,
Okay.
the difference it made in my life. I learned a lot
impact
about
he-
China.
You're
I hear
saying-
the critiques
Oh
of this.
my
I
God.
would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us.
See?
I guarantee you he wouldn't
Donald
be
Trump will learn something.
praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about
Walsh, you're
trying
losing
to
this thing, man.
do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and
Okay,
letting
does
your
Vance
folks
put him
understand
under?
what it is.
Or does
My
Vance let him
commitment,
slide?
whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that
Does
people
he
care about.
does he do the stolen value lie
Governor,
thing?
just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the
No, just-
discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just,
You should have just said
That's what I've said.
misspoke. Just say that.
so I was in
Just say you
Hong Kong
misspoke.
and
Just
China
say you screwed
during
up.
the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
Jesus
Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate, Donald Trump,
Here goes.
unfit for the
Yep,
nation's
I told you this
highest
too.
office, and you said he could be America's Hitler.
Called him eight.
I
Yep,
know
Hitler.
you've been
They
asked
brought the
many
Hitler up.
times, and you've said you regret those comments
Yep.
and explained you then
Now, if he
voted
doesn't
for
have a
Donald
good
Trump in
return for this,
2020.
shame
But
on
the
his
Washington
team.
Post reported
better
new
have a good one for
messages
this.
last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he
Yep.
was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic
Yep.
populism.
I've called everything
You're now
except
his
the one
running
thing.
mate,
The one I screwed
and
up.
you've
The rest I
shifted
was
many
right.
of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust
Have
that
a good
you will
answer, or
give
you're gonna
Donald
fall
Trump
like
the
Waltz.
advice
You
he
got
needs
Waltz
to
on a
hear,
rope.
and not just
Got
the
him on the
advice
ropes.
he
Come on
wants
now.
to hear?
Finish
You
him
have
or
2 minutes.
You're gonna
Well,
screw up
first of
too.
all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most
Rocket
importantly,
Man, well
Donald
done.
Trump delivered for the American
Trump
people.
proved me wrong. Rocket
Rising
Man.
wages, rising take-home pay, an
You saw that
economy
one
that
coming.
worked for normal
Nice.
Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration, the first round, if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says, you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Not bad.
Thank you.
It's not a bad answer.
Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz,
Uh-oh,
after
here we
Roe
go.
versus
Abortion.
Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it
Here we
comes
go.
to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine.
Don't
Yes
dodge
or
this,
no?
Waltz, or
Is
you're in
that what
trouble.
you support?
Don't
I'll give you
dodge.
2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says. But look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind.
Oh, you
Donald Trump
dodging.
put this all into
No.
motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of
Waltz.
personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing.
That's not what
Amanda
they asked
Zaworski
at
would
all.
disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in
Oh,
Texas
then
waiting
now
for
the
their
women are
child
dying.
at
See
18
that?
weeks.
This is how
She has a complication, a tear in the membrane.
Vance,
She needs to go
don't
in.
take the
the
bait.
medical care
Walz
at that
just
point
screwed
needs
up.
to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child, raped
This
and
was just
impregnated by
prepared
her
to be
stepfather.
forward. As
Those
soon as they
are
bring up
horrific.
abortion,
Now,
they
when
said,
God asked
say
about
these
that,
things.
Senator
And he's
Vance
saying
said,
it.
2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of
Oh,
pregnancies.
okay. That's
It's
one
going to
time.
make it more difficult, if not
Jericho, you said
impossible,
multiple. It's
to
only
get
once.
contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me
You didn't win
included,
yet.
infertility
Jericho, it's only
treatments are
one
why I
time.
have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not
Okay.
be right for
Do
Washington.
you think there
That's
should be
not
a
how this
9th-month
works. This is
abortion or
basic
not? He
human
won't
right.
answer.
We have
Vance,
seen
you got to put him in. He's
maternal
opened it up for you.
mortality
You going to put him under or
skyrocket
not?
in
You take
Texas,
debate. What are you going to
outpacing
do?
many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women. We trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
Don't go
No,
back
no,
to the.
certainly we won't.
Go back
And
to
I
the
want to talk
9-month thing.
about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options.
Don't walk
And
down this
you know,
road.
one of them is actually very dear to me, and I know she's watching tonight.
No.
And I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago
You're gonna
that
just
she
mess
felt like
this
if
up.
she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy
Both
front
deflected.
just to give women more
Not great.
options.
Both
Of
deflected.
course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the
Ooh.
proper
Kinsugi, you're
way
right.
to handle this,
Vance, no,
as messy
wrong.
as democracy
Vance, you had 2
sometimes
shots.
is,
You could have
is
put
to
Walz
let
under,
voters
and you did
make
not
these
put him under.
decisions.
You had
Let
2
the
chances to
individual
put him under.
states make their abortion
You didn't put him under.
policy. And
He
I think that's
opened
what
it up
makes the most sense
for you to
in
put
a
him
very
under.
big, a
Twice
very
you didn't put
diverse,
him
and
under.
let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided
I
country.
would have put him under.
Governor, would you like to
I
respond
would have
and
put him
also
under.
answer the question
Yeah.
about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia,
Another
a
story
restrictive
about
state.
this.
Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber
Sarah
Thurman
says, why
died
don't the moderators make them answer
in
the
that
question?
journey
They do
back and
sometimes,
forth.
but like I guess they don't
The fact
ever.
of the
I don't
matter
know.
is, how can we as a
You're
nation
right. They should have them answer the
say
goddamn
that your
question. I
life
agree.
and your rights,
They're not.
as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography?
Kate, Vance is speaking
There's a
Bobby's
very
plan about
real
mothers.
chance
Yes.
had
See,
Amber
I tell
Thurman
you, third
lived in
parties matter.
Minnesota,
RFK
she would be
Jr.'s
alive today.
ideas matter. They
That's
do.
why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you
Yeah.
hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening.
Because it's a
His
messy
running
issue.
mate, though, does
Well,
not.
yeah, you
and
got to
that's the
know that when
problem.
you walk in the
Governor, your
door.
time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He
Sure.
mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the
talking
most
points. Yep.
barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your
I don't
position?
think game over.
Well,
but
Nora,
not great.
First of
Vance.
all, I never
Vance did
supported
blow
a
it.
national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022, talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not. Though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But
yes,
Nora, one of the things
if you
that
sunk him at the 9th month,
in the state of Ohio,
this doesn't work.
We had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position.
We'll split too. I
and
agree.
I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back.
He needs to say
and
no
that's
fed
why
ban.
Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making child care more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible.
Did not set him up for this
got to
freaking
do
answer.
a better job at that,
this.
and that's what real leadership is.
Not at all.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom.
Told you
to make
that.
your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that.
Brought that up early.
Women having miscarriages.
Pro-women.
Women not getting the care.
They've turned
physicians
pro-life
feeling like they may be
into
anti-women
anti-women
for providing that
and it's
care.
working.
And as
that
far
is
as making
so
sure
working.
that we're educating
Democrats.
our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things, to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices. And we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit.
It's definitely working. You see it too. It's not just me, Kinsugi.
Making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator?
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby
if you
who
would have done
survives
that,
a botched late-term abortion.
You would have hammered him and put him under. I told you that.
Pro-choice or pro-abortion. That is fundamentally barbaric, and that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen. Do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience.
This was 2 questions
ago. Country more
That's when you could have buried him.
Please.
You blew it.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is
women are letting this go back and forth. Notice this?
These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things.
He has no answer.
That's
Hit him
been misread,
again.
and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things work best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget.
I agree. He's messing up. He's not putting him under.
She's proposing all those things to make life easier.
Tim is desperate, and Vance is not finishing.
Governor, you gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So fact check.
What does it say then?
Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
Did not put him under. Oops, sorry. Keep that going. I apologize, guys. Keep that going. Right now, Vance is winning on points, but it's not a blowout at all. It's nowhere near a blowout. He had many chances to put Walz under, and he didn't. Walz had some good chances to punch back. He didn't. It's almost like they're trying to not be aggressive. I feel like they're trying to not be aggressive on purpose, which is not necessarily a bad thing. We're actually getting better answers, better conversations from these guys than we did from the actual presidential candidates. We actually are getting better information, which is great. The one thing I was wrong on, I did not think they'd ask about the details of the immigration. That was the one thing I was wrong. The rest I've been running. I've been calling every other thing that I called. For those of you who watched the pregame show, I called everything else so far. The only thing they haven't done, I think I called so far, was the stolen valor thing. That has not been up yet. And he had a chance to do stolen valor. Vance didn't. He had a chance to do babies in the 9-month. He didn't. They haven't brought up the gender issue yet. The transgender issues haven't brought that up yet either. So I think that what's left over is the transgender issue, the stolen valor. I think those will pop up. As I said, so far, no mention of RFK or Tulsi. I didn't think that was going to happen. So far, it's not going to. I never thought it would. So I was right on that so far at all, unless this is an attack. I'm telling you, the counterpuncher will win. There's not much of a counterpuncher. The only person who's attacked much at all has been a little bit Vance, but he is not. For someone who's been in the press so long, you would think he'd have better instinct, right? I have an instinct in this. Like, I know when to, you hear me say, now's the time, get him. Now's the time, get him. His instinct's not as strong as I thought it would be, right? His instinct's not as what I thought it would be. So yes, Jericho says the answers have much more substance. Yes, but only one passing Project 2025. Jericho, I may be right on this. I think I was right on this one too. We'll see. You might get right on this one, but I think so. Mary says, what's wrong with Vance? Didn't push him in the face with answers. Yeah, I think he should have. Yes, 100%. Yes. Blue Black Boss says, can we ditch Trump and Kamala into the walls of France president? They both speak better. I mean, look, they both dodged some questions here or there, but I do think they've both spoken better than the people they're supporting. One thing I got to say, though, Walz is not bad at supporting Harris, but he's not as good as Vance is supporting Trump. Vance is a very good surrogate for Trump. I mean, he's really pumping him hard. Like, he's like, I got you. This is my guy. He's right. And he had a good answer when I said, why did you call him all these names? He had a good answer. It was the best you could do. He prepped that one, which is nice. So he had that one ready, but he did not. Vance did not have the abortion thing ready to go. And again, Walz didn't have the answer on, what's the actual answer? He should have that answer 100%. And he didn't. So yes, I think that's right. So Mad Nomad says abortion topics, the only thing that Dems seem to really care about other than saying Trump equals hate. Yeah, but they're good at it. I mean, they do well at it. They do. That's one thing they do well at. The only way you can hurt them is the 9-month thing. And he didn't do that. He didn't do that. So he says, no mention of inflation, particularly on senior citizens and children. Early on, he was talking about it. Yeah, early on, he was talking about it a little bit. Not crazy, but a little bit. Yes. So Stacey says, I really like the respect between these two in this debate. It is better. I think it's true. I think it's better. Yeah. So Greg says, the moderators will not ask anything about transgender issue. Vance will bring it. Okay. You think that? Yeah, I think you're right. Greg. Okay. Yeah. So the transgender piece, we'll see. This is Greg. Let's see if the moderators will bring up the trans issues or not. Maybe. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Vance could have completely buried Walz a couple of different times, said let him go. Yes, I'm disappointed. He did let him go. I agree with you completely. All right, guys, back to it.
Welcome back to the CBS News vice presidential debate. We want to turn now to America's gun violence epidemic. The leading cause of death for children and teens in America is by firearms. Senator Vance,
utter lie.
You oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago.
You got to be direct, though.
But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase
turn them into prisons.
Resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Terrible answer.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own
doesn't answer the question, Becky. It doesn't.
We understand that
making schools prisons isn't the answer.
There, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out.
Robert says, well, there's never any violence in prisons. Yeah.
Enacted
absolutely, Robert. Yes, exactly.
Red flag laws, enhanced background checks.
He wants red flag laws.
Data, but here's the problem.
Yeah,
if
that's
we really
what happens.
Want to solve this, we've got folks that
schools
won't
like
allow
prisons. Yeah.
research
terrible
to be
answer.
even done on gun violence.
They both have terrible
and
answers.
this idea that we should just live with it, and I here's what I do think, that this
Same
is a
thing.
good start to the conversation.
Answer. Terrible answer.
I 100% believe that Senator Vance
Grace.
hates
when I say schools, quit putting dads in jail,
and it
quit killing the family by attacking fathers.
agree
Yes,
with that.
that's a better answer, Grace.
That's
yes.
not far enough when we know there's things that work. I've spent time
Nomad
in
says
Finland
Vance about mental
and
health
seen
as
some
well.
Finnish
Yes.
schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment.
Not good.
And the idea to
Vance,
have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say, we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When
that's
we
the
know
counterpunch. Yes.
There's countries around the world
perfect counterpunch
that their children aren't
well done, Walz.
practicing these types of drills.
Well done,
They're
Walz.
being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix.
Vance, you better counterpunch right now. He beat you on this one.
You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is okay. First of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse.
Mental health, trying to pull back.
Substance abuse.
Trying to pull back.
We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here.
You were going well with the mental health. You went with put more people in jail.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was the NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one
it does. You're right, Becky.
where the
Guilty.
most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues.
I think he meant survivors, Brian.
Making sure folks have
Not
health care and all
actually
that, but I want to be
he
very
meant
careful.
survivors.
This idea of
Yes.
stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up
Wow,
doing is we
he's
start
doing-
looking for scapegoats.
Vance, you got slaughtered on this
Sometimes
issue.
it just is the guns.
I'm telling you, he just
It's
beat you on
just
this
the
one.
guns, and there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that
it's
this
just
is
the
one,
guns.
and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation, the high cost
you.
of
It's not the
housing
guns.
and
Thank you.
rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States.
Vance, can
and
you
that
turn it around?
contributes to the high
It's going
housing
Waltz right
prices.
now.
Governor
going
Walz,
Waltz.
the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this,
Not
this
handing out
issue
money.
of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity.
You're
It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is
that money, you go to
you
jail.
don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people.
Deregulate,
because here's what
let
we
it
know.
grow.
People with
100%.
stable housing
Yes.
end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run
pay
end
down
up
payment for
saving our
someone
money.
else's home.
And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some
Brian,
common ground
selfish.
in. But we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable
Will
housing.
Vance
But we
mention
can
the Federal
make sure
Reserve
that the
here?
government's there to help
Will he?
kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens if you lower energy prices? As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is, think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
And it says those
Senator
migrants build
Vance,
the
you
houses.
still have
You're not wrong,
23
Fina.
seconds there. Do
You're
you
not
want to
wrong.
answer
Can I have it?
where? Yeah. Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Yes.
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of
those.
federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in.
Well, of course, that's not true. And again, you have the facts. I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. Look, crossings are down compared to when Donald
So she
Trump
can't
left
fact check,
office.
so he just gives
But
extra
it's, again,
time for him to fact check.
Blaming and not trying to
Jesus
find a
Christ.
solution. I was going
Pinky,
to
you're
ask you on
terrible.
this question.
Pinky,
Are
you
we
are
going to
terrible.
drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land.
We have
Now,
unused
Minnesota doesn't have a
lots
lot
of
of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do.
A lot.
There's not a lot of federal
West
lands
has a lot.
in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks.
Yeah, it's
and
not
our
all
federal
forest, though,
lands.
but
Look,
yeah,
Minnesota,
you're right,
we
but not all of
protect
it's
these things.
forest,
We've
but
got
yes.
about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like
See,
there's a
he
chance
wants
make
it to
money
be a
here. Let's
right.
take this federal land and let's sell it to
Yeah,
people for
there's
that.
the
I think
left in
better
him.
ways to
It's a
do
right.
this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact
Don't
on
get
this.
pinky fused right.
Economists.
Correct, not the same.
Senator
Pinky
Vance, you
Bell's
said you
different.
don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor,
Where's the
your
study?
time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors
Becky.
to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Isn't
Well,
federal
there's a
land
Federal
already
Reserve
nice,
study that we're
Torrance.
happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that in some cases, many of those are local. Many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen.
Yeah, it is mostly a state problem.
That's
That's true.
to get through. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing
But
Americans
no one answered where
is
the money
high
comes from.
cost of healthcare.
The
Senator
moderators
Vance,
don't have them answer any
at the
questions.
last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, I have concepts of a plan. Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time.
You're seeing it,
under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think
it.
that, a lot of people have criticized this concept of a plan remark.
No RFK, no
It's very
Tulsi.
simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12
separate-
years in Congress,
two
you're not going
separate
to propose a 900-page bill standing on a
Sarah,
debate stage.
Maha,
It would bore everybody to tears.
Mari,
and it wouldn't
please,
actually
Maha,
mean
no Maha,
anything
guys.
because part of this is the give and take of
Told you this.
bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs.
I'm just telling you the truth. I told you 2 hours ago he wasn't going to say it.
Is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States.
That's what RFK Jr. was talking about.
That's a good answer. That it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done, but when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do, but I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better healthcare policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare.
Right.
And so what I know is under Kamala Harris,
you're right.
More people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare.
Keep your doctor.
On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be
You
there.
had Maha, Vance. You're losing them points.
When Donald Trump said,
this is back to a draw. Vance,
plan,
you were winning them points the first half. You're starting to lose them points now.
Me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is,
Mari, why
if
did he
you're
say
healthy,
this?
why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Walz is
Governor, thank
Vance,
you.
you better
Senator,
counterpunch
you have not yet
now.
Explained how you would protect people with
You
pre-existing
better counterpunch now.
That plan.
You're losing this
we
thing.
currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem.
Yes,
and he
you're right.
did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and
Vance,
get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people or whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then what happens is— So
you think the individual mandate's a good idea?
I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying healthcare once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works.
You're right.
We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret.
Can I address that?
I apologize. We're out of time. We have a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret.
Let's talk about families in America.
Okay.
There is a child care crisis in this
put him
country,
away, Vance.
And the United States
now
is
he's
one of
coming
the very
back.
few developed countries
Should have put him
in
away.
the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start. The family works better. We stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare, because look,
family
it
care
is
with choice.
unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options.
That is correct.
Like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you.
No one answered any question.
You also said, Senator Vance, many things about the American family.
Okay, here we go.
The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on childcare as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in.
Thank you,
Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Is anyone going to answer a question?
Can you clarify how that will solve the childcare shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the childcare shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide childcare options for American families. Because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
First half was a better half.
Senator.
Second half, not great.
Your ticket also has some childcare tax credit.
Jericho, yes.
Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance or and I are that far.
But if we had our salaries, maybe one person could
on
work.
options. We've done scholarship types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is,
subscribe to YouTube,
those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy is growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We
need
to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th.
I told
Senator
Sarah
Vance,
there's no World War II
you have said you
coming.
would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable. And that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020. And my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square. And that's all I've said. And that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course,
that is your answer.
We have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship.
Whatever else they're talking
it's
about.
Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years,
You should
in the
have known
last
that.
40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans.
They got me on J6.
Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
I mean, he had a
I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history,
Walz is winning the second half,
that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Margaret?
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for
There we
Democratic
go.
leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January
Got to
the
bring
20th, as
assassination
we have
up
done
now.
for
Do it.
250 years
Put
in
him
this
down.
country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election
fact that they
stolen
put Donald
by
Trump
Vladimir
in jail.
Putin
I'm sorry,
because the
had him
Russians
arrested.
bought like $500,000
You
worth
didn't
of
bring up
Facebook
34
ads.
convictions.
This has been
You
going
didn't bring
on
up they
for
tried
a
to kill
long
him
time.
twice.
And if we
You
want
had a
say
shot
that
to put him
we need
under.
to respect
Again,
the
you
results of the
blew it.
election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Blew it again.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think of
And he's
revisionist
back on
history
J6.
this.
You
Look,
should have hit him.
I don't understand how we got to this point. But the
Vance,
issue
you
was
could have
that
buried him like
happened.
3 times.
Donald Trump can do it. And
Screwed
all
up.
of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up.
Come on.
I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm
The
going to
stuff Waltz is saying
thank
is garbage
Senator
right
Vance.
now.
I think this
And
is the
he's
conversation
letting
they
it go.
want to hear.
What are
And
you
I
doing?
think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in
He's
a way that
being
we had
nice.
not seen.
And
it
Vance is being
manifested
nice.
itself
And
because
Waltz
of
is
Donald
like,
Trump's
no,
inability to say
you're bad.
he is still
You're
saying
horrible.
he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020
Oh my
election?
God.
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
Has she? It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said
banned
there's no
from
First
Twitter.
Amendment right to misinformation.
Your boy
Kamala Harris wants to
was
use
attacked.
the power of
They
the
put
government
Tulsi
and big tech to silence people
on
from
the
speaking their minds.
They banned
that is a
RFK
threat to democracy
Jr.
that will long
What are you
outlive this
doing?
present political moment. I would
They
like
tried to
Democrats
kill
and
Trump
Republicans
twice.
to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one
Reject
another.
it.
Let's
Let's be
argue
nice.
about ideas
He's
and then let's
hammering
come
you.
together
And you're like, let's be
afterwards.
nice.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
He's
That's
still
the
hammering you.
test. That's the Supreme
He's
Court
not
test.
stopping.
Tim,
He's
fire in a
whipping your
crowded
ass.
theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers
Finally.
shouldn't wear
The governor
masks.
does
That's
have the
not
floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to
They
you.
should have done it.
Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this.
Shelley,
He
you
lost the
know.
election. This is
They
not
put
a
Tulsi
debate.
on a
It's
terrorist
not-
list.
It's not anything
Yes.
anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that
So many
election,
chances to do
that's
this.
why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he can
Doreen,
do anything,
yes.
including
Yes.
taking an election, and his vice
Where was
president's
any
not
of that?
going to
You
stand to
figured it
That's what
out.
we're asking you, America.
And he
Will
didn't do
you
it.
stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president
Becky,
doesn't?
Biden could
And I
have
think
met him
Kamala
and said,
Harris
yes,
would agree.
Becky, yes.
She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would
My
do that.
chat is
Because
better
of
than
course
Vance.
That's what we would do.
My
So
chat
America,
is
I
better
think
than
you've got
Vance.
a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate continues.
There needs. I think this is not a. No, there's no clear winner in this. Vance won the first half. Walz is clear won the second half. Of this half, whatever thirds, whatever this is. The first chunk, Vance won, but on points. He did not trash him, but he won on points. And Walz has beaten him on points. The second part, whatever it is, no doubt. Jesus, so many attempts. Oh my God, so many attempts. 100%. Mars goes, Larry J did not listen to your debate prep. He should have. He should have been watching my pregame show. He did not make Walz look weak. He did not touch the gender issue. Walz is in the center, and he's not. But Walz has been able to put himself in the center like he was. I gave Walz what he was supposed to do. I'm sorry, Vance, what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to make Walz look like he's not in the center. He was supposed to make Walz look like he is weak, like he's a liar. He didn't have it. He didn't bring up Medicare for all. He didn't bring up the gender issues. None of that stuff. Brought up none of it. And then just desperately brought up RFK Jr. and Tulsi at the end. Just like, I'm screwed under J6. That's when he brings up Tulsi. And I don't know if that counts. Does that count? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that counts. I'm not trying to be a nudge here, but that was like desperation. And what Walz was supposed to do is hit Vance on abortion and women. And he did. Just what I told you. And he did. Make him move up as a jerk. He did. He brought up the idea of how can you support Trump with all that stuff. And he did. Walz was much more effective than Vance was. Vance looked good himself a little bit. But yeah, this did not go. This second part did not go well for Vance at all. He had so many opportunities to put Walz under. And if he would have put him under early, there'd be no way he could turn around. He could have put him under, so there's no way he could put him down. He did not prep as well as he could have. And there's almost the only counterpuncher was just now. Walz did some counterpunching. And then when he had him, he kept punching him. And then, I don't know, Vance kept dodging. This not good. Not good for Vance. Much better for Walz. I mean, he did prepare. NorCal says Vance did not prepare for it. Not for this, he didn't. He should have. Kintsugi says, so many missed opportunities, just like Trump. Yeah, that's true too. Jericho, Twitter files. Yes, Twitter files. God, my chat is better than Vance. Yes. Mule says, yeah, I can't believe he let him say, I don't run Facebook, when if it's shown that president administration basically does. Yes, literally does. Okay, no, he doesn't. He should have said, no, he doesn't, but Harris does. So he doesn't because he hasn't won yet. But Harris does, literally does. Yes. James says, the moderators smile like they were happy this debate has little substance. It actually has more substance than the last one, though. It does. So, Robert, oh, nice. Robert says, man, that jarhead must have gone to Hollywood for boot camp. Lol. Those who don't know, there's 2 boot camps, for those who don't know. One in Paris Island, South Carolina, and one in outside of San Diego in California. We call that the Hollywood Marines. Yeah, it's an internal thing. I went to Paris Island. I'm sure Robert did too. So, yes, there we go. All right. Shelly says, Walz isn't winning the second part so much as Vance stopped thinking things through. Ooh, so you're thinking more like Vance lost it versus Walz won it? Maybe. I could see that. Maybe. Yeah. Daniel says, can I start drinking for no reason now? Yes. Guys, by the way, if you haven't already clicked the button that is like, please do so. Make sure you subscribe. If you want me to do more of this, subscribe. It does matter. If you want to just keep me going, you can always become a member. If you're on YouTube, click that join button. It's $5 a month. Keeps me doing more of this, right? So I can spend more time on. And also super chat me if you can. Super chats do matter tremendously. They do help a lot. And of course, so do the memberships. Memberships matter. And yes, let me put these back on now.
Debate. It is now time for the closing statements. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built. From Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you that that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something, not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage. And then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class. I'm talking about. And she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz,
thank
bad.
You.
Senator
okay.
Vance,
Wasn't bad.
Your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well.
Change the direction.
Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you and good night.
Well, there we go. Thank you and good night. That's it. We are done. That was it's another one in the can. Well, after the last debate, I was sure, no doubt, that Harris won a debate. This one, I'm not sure. I wish I had a clear answer. I feel like both of them did both of them did okay. They weren't bad. Vance did one thing very well, I think. I think he came across as not a jerk. I do think he came across as nicer, more friendly. I think that's true. But I think that actually did not give him as much as he could have because he had opportunities to put Walz under and he didn't. And I think he could have. Walz came across as decent because he wasn't that great anyway. So I guess when it comes to expectation, I give it to Walz because of expectation, I guess. But that's a stretch because the first half of that debate, Walz got beat up by Vance. I mean, Vance beat him in the first half. The second half, it was just Vance fumbles. And when Walz got him on abortion, I mean, he didn't let up. When Walz got him on J6, Walz didn't let up. And Vance couldn't do anything about it. So I think the second half, Walz won. Maybe I give the edge to Walz. Maybe. But I mean, even that, I don't know. You guys tell me if I'm wrong. I'm going to go down some comments. You tell me if you have a choice. Someone you think who won this thing. I don't know. Sarah says, coalition of Bernie and the neocons. Sometimes they're the same. Sarah, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. I'm not, I'm all right. Let me walk down what I talked about, right? The keys. What did not get mentioned also was gender. That one, I guess, Sarah, you were wrong on this one. You said World War III. I said they wouldn't. I was right on that one. Jericho, you said multiple times 2025. Nope, only one time. I was right on that one too. Jericho, I was right on that one also. Greg, you said they wouldn't bring up trans. Greg, well done. You were right. Nobody brought it up. You were correct, Greg. Well done. You were right. No one brought it up. Completely correct. And I said he should have. I said he should have. So I was wrong on the bring up the details of the, I didn't think they'd bring up details of immigration, but they did. I thought that was more presidential. So I was off on that one. So I'm not sure I'm okay with the Maha. Well, he didn't mention Maha. They mentioned RFK and Tulsi. I'm not sure I'm going to give that one away. I said he wouldn't do it. And what I meant, which I didn't say, so I don't know. I don't think that one counts because he just was like, J6, oh my God, Tulsi, RFK. That was not like planned. That wasn't anything. If he had thought about it, at the end, here's where he failed. At the end, Walz brought up the coalitions. We have a coalition of all these cool people. And then here comes Vance. Let me tell you about my grandma. Why didn't he bring up the coalition too? That was his perfect time to bring up his. He didn't do that. So yeah, not great. So yeah, not great. So NorCal Meg says, no, Larry, didn't count. See, didn't count. So I was only wrong once tonight. I was wrong once last time too, right? The last time I was wrong once, I had like 10 yeses and 1 no. About the same here, about 10 yeses and 1 no. About 10 things I said were going to happen happened. There was 1 no. So I did lose 1. I'm not perfect. I'm like almost always right. But yeah, not perfect. And look, I'm doing this live and predicting an hour before. So if I'm 90%, that's still pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good. And yes, they should have been using me as a consultant, 100%. Garrett says, Vance needed a KO to make the presidential debate. Yeah. He pulled too much of his punches like Trump. Agreed, Garrett. I think you're totally right on that one. Yes. Yes, 100%. Ouch, Vance, and it's more important to end strong. Agreed. Yep, 100%. All right, Daniel says, thanks for your insight, Larry. Been watching you for years and also appreciate your comments and approach on how to improve this country. Thank you, my friend. I do appreciate that. Yes. Mari, people are going to vote for Kamala because of Timmy. Really? I mean, he was friendly, but he wasn't great. I mean, Vance should have been able to beat Walz easily, and he didn't. Blue Black Boss says, Vance needed to quit pulling punches and start showing what the dude Walz supports have been doing. Agreed, right? Here's what I think happened. I'm going to give you my guess on this one. Vance's team said, dude, they're going to try to make you look like a jerk. Don't look like a jerk. Calm yourself. Don't go into offense. Don't look like a jerk. I think they pumped that into him so much that it basically brought him down too far. That is my gut. I think that's what happened. So yes. Yeah, Greg, you were right. Greg, I gave you credit, brother. You were correct. This is yours. You are correct. You were absolutely right. Yes. Adam says, that's the thing that gets him with this campaign for Trump. Kamala, Walz should be easy candidates to beat. They should be. I agree. Trump could have ended it in the last debate by calling her a state-sanctioned murderer and slaver. Yes. Prosecutor AG. Yep. Vance could have done it with things like a seat. Yes. They brought up China and Vance did nothing. You're right. They brought up China. And Vance is like, whatever. Instead of going, yeah, dude, like you got like CCP stuff in like your house. Yes, you're totally right. Adam goes on to say somehow they just can't finish him off. Yeah, 100%. Doreen says Vance got kicked out of a restaurant and his advice was go eat at that restaurant. He's really a stand-up guy. I like his decency. Can't tell if it's driving you crazy though. No. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, look, to be forward, guys, to be very forward with you. I'm talking about how you deal with debates and how you find what you can find and do the right thing. And when need be, you attack. My first debate I was in 2016, 7 years ago, running for the VP Libertarian Party. And I had literally, this is true. You can watch it. It's on C-SPAN. If you want to watch it, you can watch it on C-SPAN. I literally had the former governor of Massachusetts on. It was my first debate. And if you watch, when I saw it then, I figuratively, not literally, slit his throat. I won that debate. I beat a governor of Massachusetts, former governor of Massachusetts. Yes, in the debate, handily. Why? Because I knew when to attack, when not to attack. My opening statement, my closing statement was strong. I knew what I was doing. I prepped back then 7 years ago. I've been in many debates since then with actual people like congressmen. Yes, I've done that before. I stood in for Gary Johnson in 2016. I was his surrogate in 2016, right? I helped prep Gary Johnson when I could to go on TV and stuff. I prepped in 2014. I prepped people. So I prep people for this. This is what I'm doing. This is a skill set like anything else. So yeah, that's not bad. That's bad. NorCal says, Larry for president, chat for VP. The chat was better. You guys figured it out. Like the chat was better. You guys are like, no, we should have said this. Yes. Yes. So anyway, Larry says, sorry, Larry, I'm broke from RFK donations in my local candidate. I know. It's fine. You hit the like button, brother. Hit the like button. We're good. Share this thing. We're good. No worries. Just do that instead, and we are all good. No worries. Absolutely. So a Blue Black Boss coalition start with Unity Party. Imagine if he had said we have Unity Party. Imagine if either of them had said the Unity Party. Yes. Jericho says, I still don't think that Waltz made the bigger case for helping the economy. JD won that one, although he could have hit harder. That's the biggest piece, I think, Jericho. And the problem is Vance is at a disadvantage because the expectation's higher, right? So he's at disadvantage because of that. Yes, that's the issue. All righty. Marshall says, if Waltz brought up a coalition, including Taylor Swift, let JD bring up Hulk Hogan, brother. Ooh, I love that. Shelly says, unicorns and rainbows for everyone, except for the bad orange man. Correct. He doesn't get it. Yes, you're accurate. 100%. Yes. All right. Fina says, I don't know how much joy we should have on Edge of World War III. Yes. And that's the point, right? And I told you wouldn't bring it up. I told you they would not bring up World War III. You guys are like, you're going to bring it up. Sarah said it. And I'm like, Sarah, no, sorry, they're not doing it. They're not doing it. They didn't bring it up. I knew they wouldn't. I knew they wouldn't bring it up. There's no way. Yes. So James says, thanks, CBS, for not inviting the third-party candidates on stage. This shows how corrupt you really are, how much of a simp you are, the Unity Party. At least there was substance this time. There was more. That's true. There was more of that. I completely agree. There's definitely more of that this time. Yeah, 100%. So Becky says, why not close on energy? Not bad either. That would have also been a good thing. Yes. Mad Nomad says, what about our sick children? Yes, we could have absolutely done that. 100%. We could have done that. All that would have worked. Yep. So Doreen says, my heating bill was $1,000 in the peak winter months under Trump. Wow. And it was about the same under Harris. Both sides suck. We need to bust this duopoly. I'm holding out hope RFK gets 5%. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be fair with you, Doreen. I don't see it. RFK is not interested in it. He just isn't. I hope he'll do better, but he's just not interested in it. He's just not. I wish he was. I completely agree. Blue Black Wall says, and Luzar, us. Yes. 100%. Yes. Sarah says, how did neither of them not thank Larry Sharpe? Because they didn't listen to me as they should have. I do love the Vance-Walz 24. That's very good, Guillermo. That's great. I do love that. It's so funny. Shelly says, Mapstead Shaw would have my backing. Should have. Absolutely. Should have. 100%. Yes. So, all right. Adam says, election betting odds show Trump's odd improved while Kamala has decreased fairly significantly. So I say Vance won. I don't think it's a meaningful win. Maybe, okay. Look, if that's what it says, then maybe there was a winner. I have trouble picking a winner on this one, guys. I'm not trying to, look, you guys know, I will say what I think. Even if you guys are mad at me, I will still say it. I don't see a winner. This is like a draw to me. I don't see a big win. You know what, Adam? Maybe a draw means they think that it goes against the incumbent. Maybe that's why that happened. I don't know. Or maybe they just think that Vance won. I'm not saying Vance didn't win, right? I'm not saying Waltz didn't win. I'm saying it feels 50-50 to what Kate says. Yeah, 50-50. It feels like a draw to me. I don't see a clear winner in this one at all. No one did a crushing blow. No one did. I think the openings were for Vance to win this. I mean, you saw it live. There were openings, and I literally announced the openings when they were happening. Like I'm like, now get them, and that's what should have happened. The last time I was doing some debate prep was with a libertarian candidate, and we were doing like 3 or 4 of us in the debate scene, And I literally was setting bait as I was like, I would be the other guy, right, in this. And I would be setting bait, waiting for my Kent to take it and attack. I would open up an ambush and see if he'd ambush me. Or I'd set up for him to bait so I could ambush him. And we do back and forth so we could see it coming. So you could watch it coming and go, here it comes. Here it comes. Here it is. Here's the error. Here's the thing you said. Here it is. Right? And I feel like they didn't do it. And these are presidents and vice presidents. Who was teaching these people? Jesus Christ, who's teaching these people? Oh my God. Kay says, Larry, you're the Holocaust of debate calling. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. Kinsuga's like, I expected more from Vance too. See, and I think that's the piece. Mari says it too. I think that this is why I feel like, and I may be wrong on this, I kind of feel like maybe Walz won only because of expectation, maybe. And again, if it's anything, it's a minor win if there is one. So Braden says, JD won because most people stopped watching the first commercial break. Yeah, if that's true, you're right. I mean, that's a very valid point, Braden. Who kept watching? If you watched the first half and then said it's over, then Vance 100% won. There's no doubt. Then I would go that. Yes. 100%. So yes. Dow says, why didn't Walz fix the workers' comp in Minnesota? Minnesota has the worst workers' comp system in the world. I mean, in the U.S. I didn't know that. Well, there we go. Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah. Piper says, still no Maha. No, there was no Maha. There was no Maha. Yes. There was no Maha. 100%. Greg says, would any libertarians thinking about voting for Trump be swayed to do this either? No. Vance wasn't very libertarian, what he said. That didn't affect anything. Kate says, thanks, Larry. I'm glad you did, guys. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Yes. Kinzugi says, Walz is down-to-earth guy. And that's what he was supposed to come across. He came across as that way. Yes. And Mandem says, I'm happy JD didn't come off as a big puffy jerk. I think that is true, right? Yes. I think that's true. Yeah. Sarah says, Larry, ultimately I was right because I said Larry is always right. Oh. Yes, Sarah. Yes, absolutely. So Riot says they both did good, but I don't think this changes anyone's opinion or rallies the party vote. I agree. I think this debate filled the same space that most debates fill, most VP debates fill. I don't think it'll move the needle much at all. I mean, it might a little bit, maybe, but I don't see it. Someone had to really smash the other for that, right? Bryce, yeah, military records weren't mentioned. Yes, Vance is literally a combat veteran. And he didn't bring up any of that stuff. He didn't bring up any of it. What is going? Maybe they thought, maybe. I mean, they could have outthought themselves. Maybe they thought, don't bring it up because he'll be ready with a great counterattack. Maybe they thought that. I mean, that's a maybe, but I'm not sure. Maybe. Joe says the problem was no candidate wearing earrings. And it's probably true. Yeah, probably true. Yeah. So Bill says, I think the Vance did his job, which is to make Trump more credible. Well, you know what? That's a valid point, Bill. Valid point. One thing Vance did very well, and if that's what you're counting on, and maybe you are, right? If you're looking at that as the outcome, is the outcome I supported my candidate better and made them look better. There is no doubt that Vance has been out here doing this. Vance knows how to rep his boy. There's no doubt. Vance reps Trump better than anybody. I mean, better than Vivek. And Vivek used to rep Trump pretty good. But he does. He's better. Vance reps Trump really well. So he's out there like, and Trump did this and boom. I do like that. So if you know what, Bill, maybe I could be swayed that Vance won this then, right? If that's gonna be your criteria of victory, he did it better than Harris did. I'm sorry, than Walz did. Walz didn't do a bad job supporting Harris. It wasn't bad. It was a decent job, but Vance was better. There's no doubt Vance was better at that. So yeah, absolutely. So Dow also goes on to say Vance should have gone after Walz on $25K for first-time home buyers. It's a tax credit, not upside for assistance. Yeah, also true. Yeah, also true. 100%. So, alrighty. Torrance says, my brother's a dock worker. I was expecting questions on the strikes. No. That's like WW3. That's not going to come up. Vance would have had to bring that up, right? Vance would have had to bring that up for sure. Missy says, be sure you subscribe. Yes. And hit the notification bell. Don't just subscribe. Also hit do that plus notification bell. Please do both. If you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, please share this. If you haven't clicked the button that is like, why do you hate me? I don't know why you do. Please click the button that is like. No matter what, do that and share it. It does matter. Absolutely. And if you want to do a super chat, you can, like Daniel has. Thank you, sir. You have both a member and a super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for $10. This country needs your leadership. Oh, thank you, Larry. Larry actually answers questions and is honest. By the way, I've listened to your Star Trek Day of the Dove. Oh, watched it along probably 50 times. Please do more TOS videos. Yes. For those of you, for those of you who know me, I'm a very big original series, Star Trek original series fan. I like the old ones with Kirk and Spock. I enjoy it. And I will also do shows about it and talk about the things that have happened and why these things matter, right? And how history repeats itself and how the old Star Trek literally told us what was going to happen. Like literally told us what was going to happen. In 1967, they were like, this is what's going to happen. This is the issue. Look out for this. And how they talked about AI back in 1967. Yes, they discussed all these things. The flip phone, that's from Star Trek in the 60s. Exactly right. Voice control, that's the 60s. That's where that stuff comes from. That is an amazing series. So you know what, Daniel? Let me put that in my calendar. Because you said that, I will do that. Yes, I will see if I come up with a Star Trek show. I don't know what type, but I will figure something out. I will figure something out. I like it tremendously. It's one of my favorite ones. So I will find a way to do that. Yes, I will. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. So, all righty. Let's see here. Liberty Lady says, I should have liked all VP candidates on stage. 100%. Yes, I agreed. Greg goes on to say, I've learned so much from listening to you about debates and interviews. Good stuff. Thank you. Oh, guys, that's what I'm trying to achieve, right? People, I've been through a lot of this, and I want you to see what's happening and why they're thinking and how it works, right? Because look, if you're going to be doing this and watching, and you should know, you should be informed. So Vivek says, agreed. Vance is pretty good, like Vivek. Yes, I think Vance is better than Vivek now. Vivek, I thought, used to be number one, right? If you go back 6 months, 4 months, I think Vivek was probably the best Trump surrogate. Now I think it's Vance. I think Vance has passed him now. I think he has. So he says, yep, Vance did sell Trump better. 100%. I agree. Yes, I think it's absolutely true. Yes. So, Shelly goes, comment after the live stream with your opinions. That were very important. Yes, guys, always remember, after this is over, please put a comment, because you know who likes that? Mr. Rhythm, Al Gore. Rhythm. He likes it a lot. That guy, he's a tough guy. I'd make him happy, but yes. Vivek says Star Trek's the best. I do love it. It's one of my favorite ones. Yes, 100%. Shelly says, in 1953 at MIT, they were discussing AI. Yes, but Star Trek was at that point mainstream. Yes. NorCal, I'm a subscriber and hit like every time. That was great, Larry. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate it, my friend. I do appreciate that. Peace Logic, agree. You have an excellent show, Larry. Thank you. Oh, guys, thank you. I appreciate that. That's great. So good. Shelly says, I prefer Tulsi. There we go. Prabhat says, Vance won. Credible future Republican president. That's huge when attached to Trump. Prabhat, I hadn't thought of it that way. If you look at it that way, I think I could see it there too. Yeah, look, I'm not swayed against Vance being the victor here. I'm not. I think it's close either way, but I could see it. And I think if you judge it that way, I could buy that too. Yeah, I could buy that too, 100%. Here's what I think is going to be the outcome, guys. I think in the long run, this will not affect it much at all, sadly. I thought there was a chance it could, and I think there was a chance. I think it was each of them trying to be safe, which is what I think happened. I think Walz had to struggle more. It was obvious. Vance had an easier day. But when Walz saw an opening that he could attack, I'll give it to him. He attacked twice. When he saw that, he absolutely chatted. I'm going to say he absolutely attacked both times. He attacked both times when he had the chance. He absolutely attacked both times. So that he did good. Vance missed a lot of opportunities. This was Vance's to win. This was Vance's to win. And I think that's the issue. I don't think Walz had a real chance to just hammer Vance, that he could actually win this thing. I think Vance could have and lost it. Kintsugi's with me. She said won't make a dent. I agree. I think it won't make a dent. But it was interesting. I hope it makes sense. Peace Logic says, Larry, I wish I could replay live chat when we're watching. Is the feature? Yes, you can, but it takes time. You got to wait, right? This was very long. It somehow processes whatever it does in YouTube, come back in like 3 or 4 hours, and you can then come back and watch the live chat while you watch it. You can. Yes, you absolutely can. So yeah. So that's my view. I don't really have a winner in this one, guys. I wish I did. I could see it either way. I could see you the way you think you guys talk about that. It could be Vance. Yes. I could see someone saying Walz did. Yes. But some of these things really should have been a much easier way. So yeah, that's my issue. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. It was a long one, 3 hours. I appreciate you guys giving me all the time you guys gave me. Please, if you haven't clicked the like button, please do so. Share it if you can. And of course, subscribe or follow all the places. If you can, please follow them. If you want to become a member, please hit the join button on the Larry Sharpe YouTube page if you can. But no matter what, after this is over, if you want to come back and look at it, put a comment. I'll respond. Why? You know who loves it. The rhythm, known as Al Gore, does love it. And that makes this grow more and more and more. Because sadly, I am still being shadow banned like there's no tomorrow. I will be back on, though. I will be on tomorrow night, 7 p.m., my regular show. I will be on probably my post-debate or something else. I don't know. We'll figure it out. 7 p.m. tomorrow night and Thursday. I will see you all